We're live. Okay, good evening. This is the Wednesday, October 30th, public meeting, as distinguished from public hearing, of the Shrewsbury Planning Board. I am Steve Rotalakis. I'm the acting chairperson of the board. So I'd call this meeting to order. And first, I would look for board member comments. Matt, you have any comments this month?
Nope.
Erna?
No comment this month.
Tim?
No comments.
Julie?
No, not this evening, thank you.
And Dino's
Dino's not available tonight.
not available tonight, okay. And I have no comments either. Okay, so taking up new business, and this is zoning warrant article number 9, and it would be placed in section 3, Roman numeral number 3, capital A, B, C, and Roman numeral number 7, dot, Roman numeral 10, it's a new zoning section. And it's the MBTA, parent, TOD, and parent zoning act. And we had 2 public hearings, the 2 prior Thursdays, at which we discussed this warrant article, as well as took her testimony from the Shrewsbury superintendent in his office, school superintendent. We also heard a presentation from Mr. McGoldrick of our planning department, and received information from the town manager. And we closed the public hearing last Thursday, October 24th. And now it's time to discuss what we want to do with this zoning article, whether we want to recommend it to the fall town meeting. So I guess at this point, I would look for any board member comments. Any comments, Perna?
I don't have any comment, Chair.
Matt, you can't vote on this because you're not available, but do you have any comments?
No comments.
Tim?
Just a concern about the, really a question. Would it, if we don't change the definition within the district of family, would the EOHLC still approve the draft as written? Is there any chance to any room on that one issue? Because it seems like that the unlimited number of occupants per unit, to me, seems to undermine the purpose of the high-density housing, because while it would be attractive to some to have that idea that, you know, we could put so many people in a unit, it may dissuade others from wanting to live there, because it just seems, for lack of a better way of saying it, like lawless, like anything goes with that change in the definition of family. So I don't know where the state, what their side of that would be, how they would argue in favor that that's a good thing as part of the new or amended bylaw for the town of Shrewsbury. So other than that, I think the proposed district is well done, the draft is well done. Just the concern about changing the definition of family within the district. And it would solely be only for the TOD district. That would not apply to the rest of the town. Okay, that's really my only concern. I don't know if town council weighed in on that, and if in fact, if Shrewsbury didn't comply with that one recommendation by the EOHLC, would it still pass? Would it still be okay? I don't know.
Yes, I can provide some response to that. So we changed that, or I should say we provided that exemption from the existing definition of family for this district alone, based on the UHLC recommendation. It was a technical recommendation, so they, in their letter to us, they haven't outright said that it renders the bylaw non-compliant. But we feel that that's an appropriate safety valve to provide that level of confidence that UHLC wouldn't use that to render the bylaw non-compliant. We did review that with town council, and the language was actually specifically from town council to provide that exemption. I understand the concerns related to that exemption for this district. But again, it's mainly tied towards regulating, the in-law apartment uses. And then beyond that, to some of the other concerns that were raised, I do think that there are other regulations that if needed, we could fall back on in terms of, health code and, other such, building code that would not regulate family, but regulate reasonable occupancy. Although we do have that and there are, uses for it in our existing bylaw, its applicability to this district, I think, is negligible, so it's an easy change in my mind, but definitely understand the concerns.
So let's say we got rid of it and the town meeting passed the bylaw. Do you think the AG is gonna spit it back with, hey, we don't like what you did relative to the definition of family in the TOD bylaw?
So I think if we did not put the exemption in as currently proposed, I think UHLC and the AG's office may use that to say, we haven't found this bylaw to be compliant based on our technical recommendation, which wasn't. Again, it's a guess. We don't know how they would react to that. Not including a technical recommendation, but that would be my best guess of how they may view that.
But we wouldn't have to resubmit it and go back to town meeting, we would just,
Right, they may just exempt it on its own, and reintroduce that provision.
something to consider.
I think the other piece of that in terms of, and kind of looking back to the technical recommendations, I think it goes to, again, it kind of highlights how we wrote this bylaw in terms of giving the board and the community the most discretion as allowed under that site plan provision. We did write it very close to the line of that.
Yeah.
And I think that's what they were really flagging, is here's where that may be subjective. And that's in relation to what, the other piece that the EUHLC has suggested and the AG's office has suggested is, if a board were using these regulations in a way that was precluding development, and shows a history of denying projects based on what they consider subjective criteria, even if it's in the bylaw and that's seen as compliant, then they may look to take further action. But I think that would have to be really clearly kind of more malicious in terms of denying projects under the
Yeah.
bylaw. But
Better question is on the lip that was approved, what is the unit mix? And is there any restriction on the number of applicants in any of the units?
So that there would be no restriction on families in those units under the LIP. I'm not sure of the final bedroom count, if that was included in the LIP. I'd have to look back.
Okay.
Just a quick follow-up to that. Have you seen similar technical recommendations from state for other similar situations like any of the other towns?
Yeah, so I think some of the ones that we saw didn't really surprise us. I think they were, again, we were writing it very close, and we wanted to kind of nudge to see, where that would fall. So I think those, I wasn't surprised by the technical recommendations, because of how closely we were writing that. And so seeing similar things in other communities, we just had to take one more review and tighten it up per those specific recommendations that they gave us. So I think it was a helpful process. I think we're, certainly better for it and have a really sharp bylaw at this stage.
Julie, you have any?
I don't have any questions. I would just say that I know that this legislation is, certainly has its complexities, and I appreciate the town staff, the administration, for really trying to dig in. And I'm also very appreciative to the general public for bringing forth their insights and their opinions and their questions, because I think even if we have these tough questions that are coming up, those are the questions that help end up giving us a good product in the end. And I think what we're putting to town meeting right now is the product of that. So looking forward to moving this forward.
Yeah,
My thought is that two of these sites have already been one's the subject of an approved 40B, the other's the subject of a 40B in process, LIPS. So the unit count is kind of known. We're gonna deal with the same issues relative to family when we're dealing with on those issues, and if we tried to restrict it, I'm sure the HAC would reverse it. I think the town has done a good job in designating those areas, and I think that the hearings, based on historical data, it has been shown that some of the concerns about the attendant costs of these units have not been borne out when they actually go online. So I guess if there's no other comments, Chris, you have some?
Yeah, I just wanted to point, and they're very minor, but I did have two edits from when the board last saw this. So just on page 2, what we've done is added the senior village overlay. The board may recall last town meeting in May, we passed that. So we just hadn't added that into that section 3 districts, which literally just is a table that lists all of the districts in town. So we've added that in as 19. The transit-oriented development overlay is now 20. And then on page 5, under 4 general requirements, section C, this is related to the special permit provisions where a special permit is required. Originally listed 50 feet and 4 stories. The board will recall we've put caps on that. So we've amended that, and then as it's written before the board this evening is now where a special permit is required, planning board may impose conditions. And we've adjusted that to 45 feet and 3.5 stories in keeping with that cap. And the parking facility constituting a half story. So that's where the board essentially can require, if they issue a special permit for those provisions, they can require parking to be placed under the first floor, and this would allow the board to do that within that originally capped criteria.
Chris, on that C, is it 3 stories or 3.5 stories?
Correct, 3.5 stories.
3.5?
Yep, 45 feet and 3.5 stories is the cap.
That's for a special permit.
Yep, and that's reflected in the,
As of right is only 2.5.
correct, and so they're allowed to add up to one additional story per that cap, which would be 3.5.
okay.
Any other red lines or changes we should be aware of? So I guess with that, I would entertain a motion as to whether this board wants to recommend this zoning warrant article number 9 to the fall town meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any old business?
None this evening.
Any correspondence?
None this evening.
Then in light of that, I would also entertain, we're gonna take up the reorganization of the board at the next public meeting, which is next Thursday, November 7th at 7 PM. So with that, I would entertain a motion to close this evening's public meeting.
So moved.
Second? Any second?
Second.
I move you.
Second?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.